Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to Life from the Wrist. Hope you guys are doing well today. We're going to be discussing another one of these watches that we've got in for our watch store. This is going to be about the Caravelle automatic diver that we have here. This is a really cool vintage watch from Caravelle. It has a very interesting history in connection with Bulova, and so I'm going to be talking about this dive watch. We've got some information about this watch that we're going to share with you, and also, as we do with most of these videos, we're going to go over sort of the history of the brand, the history of this, I guess, watch reference, and then give you some details about this specific watch. This specific one is from the 1970s. It's a really unique looking watch, and so I'm super excited to get into this. We don't really cover a lot of divers on this watch, on this YouTube channel and on our website, so I'm actually pretty stoked to have this one in the metal so you can see how it's running. The seconds hand is by far the coolest thing about this watch, and so I'm really excited to show you guys this watch. So without further ado, let me flip perspectives so you can take a look at this Caravelle diver with the day-date complication from the 1970s. All right, so let's take a look at this Caravelle diver from the 1970s. This is a really interesting watch and has a really interesting history, sort of intertwined with Bulova. So I'll give you a little bit of information about Caravelle as a brand before we dive into this watch, and you can kind of take a look at this watch while we speak through it. So Bulova is obviously a brand that has a lot of history, especially with watches like the Accutron and those types of watches. They're an extremely well-known brand, and one of the things that they actually did in the 1960s was launch some lines of jeweled watches that would end up being one of the most bought watches within the United States. So Caravelle is strictly a very United States of America focused brand. And in 1962, this was when Bulova actually introduced Caravelle, which was a line of watches specifically more on the jeweled side of things, so a lot more sort of traditional and jeweled watches. And the idea for this line of watches was that they were to compete with existing watch brands that were at sort of a lower price point for customers. And so they came out with Caravelle, and this was one of the watches that obviously was launched with this brand. Caravelle had a very positive history in the 1960s. By 1968, they were actually one of the largest selling jeweled watch companies in the entire United States. So obviously they had a lot of really great success with the watches that they launched. I did speak about the fact that they sort of focused heavily on jeweled watches, but there were some dive watches that Caravelle came out with, and there are a lot of vintage Caravelle divers that are very popular within watch collecting, especially because they are a little bit more affordable compared to some of the other dive watches out there. This specific watch here is a Caravelle automatic diver. It has a day-date complication, and it has this really sort of retro case design. I think one of the first things that you notice is definitely the case design. So you have this sort of ovular case here with these integrated lugs, and obviously made out of stainless steel, fairly chunky crown, and you can see sort of a if I show you the back here, you can see lugs go straight into sort of the design of the case. The case definitely reminds me, at least from the back, reminds me of the Seiko Turtle, which I'm sure is a big favorite of many watch collectors out there. And so stainless steel case that has a very retro case design to it. Then what you have here is a black dial, and what's really cool about this version of this watch is you can see that there are some little spots there. They almost look like stars in the night sky, which I think is really beautiful. So you have a black dial. You also have this black bezel, unidirectional, so you can turn it both ways. It's not clicking, not locking, so you're able to do that. Really nice red arrow at the top there. And then you have a day-date complication at 3 o'clock. It is a non-quick set date, so what's kind of unfortunate about it is if you want to move the day or the date forward, you pull out the crown and you'll move the time forward, and it will progress the day and the date. In order to progress if the day and the date are not synced up correctly, what you'll actually have to do is you'll have to bring the hour hand forward, bring it back, bring it forward, and that will progress the day and the date forward. I guess one of the fairly obvious things that stands out about this watch is the second hand that you can see flying around there, pun intended. You can see at the end of the seconds hand, which is now at 6 o'clock, you can see this really beautiful white plane that's traveling around the outside of this watch. I think it's a really unique sort of thing to do. It doesn't really go with the idea that this is a dive watch, that you have a plane now on the dial, but I do think it looks pretty awesome and gives this watch a really unique sort of feel to it when you have it on the wrist. It's not your typical seconds hand. It has that plane, which I think, yes, it makes it difficult to read exactly what second you're on, but I think it gives this watch a really unique sort of look to it. Then just to kind of go over a little bit more, you can see loomed hour, applied hour indicators, and then obviously the hours and minutes hand have the loom in it as well. You can see that it's kind of falling off of the some of the loom inside of the hours and minutes hand is coming off. I actually think it gives it quite a cool look, sort of a vintage inspired look there, and really does kind of complete this vintage watch in general. If we look at the side of the case here, you can see that the crown is signed with C for Caravelle, which I think is fairly unique. I don't know how often you see those. But overall, the watch is in nice condition for a vintage watch. This is not the original bracelet that came with this watch. This is an aftermarket Mido bracelet, but I think the fact that it is sort of this retro 70s bracelet kind of completes the whole package with this watch, which is something that's, I think, super important, is making sure that it still has that 70s vibe to it. The watch itself is 41.5 millimeters in diameter with a lug width of 20 millimeters. So if I just slide this onto my wrist really quickly, I obviously wear smaller watches, but you can see that this fits quite nicely on the wrist. A little bit chunky, but still fits really nicely, especially for something from that era. If I was to compare it to something a little bit smaller, I am currently wearing this Vacheron Constantin. But if you kind of compared it to something smaller, you can definitely see the size comparison is quite different. But this is a completely different watch, you know, but a beautiful watch nonetheless. I mentioned that this watch is this is a automatic waterproof watch. It's the reference 745. I don't know how those are actually tracked by Caravelle, or if there's a lot of history about it, but that's the reference. If you want to talk about the movement in this is the Caravelle 11OK ACB automatic movement, workhorse movement, not a lot of finishing to it. If you take off the case back, it's going to be no frills automatic movement, but a really cool watch nonetheless. I absolutely love it. I think this is such a cool dive watch from the 1970s, and isn't something you're going to see very often. It's a relatively affordable piece as well. There are a lot of these out there. Condition can vary on them. I think this is one of the better ones that I've seen, especially with sort of the stars on the dial, the little spots on the dial that give it sort of that feel to it. And then also just the overall kind of condition of the case is fairly good too. So a really cool diver. I encourage you to take a look at it. I will have more pictures of this watch on our website, so look in the look in the description of this video, and you will see a link to the listing that we have on our watch store. This is available for sale if you are interested, but there will be an editorial, an article in our editorial section, as well as some more pictures on our website if you want to take a look at this watch. It is a really cool watch. I encourage you to take a look at it. Hope you guys enjoyed taking a look at this watch. Let me flip perspectives so we can close out the video. I hope you guys enjoyed looking at this Caravelle diver in connection with Bulova. This is a very cool watch. I think it's a really unique diver that you're not going to see very often. Caravelle was a fairly accessible brand for most people. And I think this is a really unique one, especially with sort of the plane on that seconds hand, which I think makes it very cool. I also think it's aged really beautifully for a vintage watch, and so that's some of the things that I think are really cool about this watch. If you want to see more pictures and get more information about this watch, be sure to head over to our website. I'll put a link in the description to the listing that we have on our watch store, but I encourage you to check out the editorial post that we have on our website, where we basically create an editorial post an article for each corresponding video that we do on our YouTube channel. We've got some more in-depth information about this watch and Caravelle, so be sure to check out that article in our editorial section of our website. If you are new to Life on the Wrist, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you like these types of videos, and if you wouldn't mind leaving me a comment in the comment section, letting me know what you think about this really unique diver. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Also, if you wouldn't mind hitting that like button for us for the analytics that we do for our YouTube channel, that really would help us out. And with that said, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and until next time.